The events of the film take place in a North African country called Uller. Historically, there has been a conflict between Banzamia and Tarabya. Peace came when Banzamia rose to power, but with the support of the West, Banzamia launched a new war against the government through terrorist attacks. In a small provincial town, children were showing off their football skills on a pitch, while a representative from a European club walked across the field alongside the city mayor. They were discussing which of the young players could be taken to play for Milan or Liverpool. The mayor approached the most promising boy, and at that very moment, a rifle shot rang out. A sniper had positioned himself on the roof of a nearby building and was trying to kill the mayor. From various streets, cars and motorcycles carrying armed men began converging on the football field. They shot everyone in their path, men and women alike, causing as much harm to the local population as possible. Dead and wounded people lay everywhere, and those still alive fled from this bloody act of terror. At that same time, in another city, a Chinese woman named Pan Wenjia was working as a volunteer medic at a hospital. Walking into the hall, she found local residents and staff had organized an impromptu celebration in honor of the end of her service and her return home. Her husband, Ma Xiao, a journalist, arrived at the hospital just then. He helped her load her belongings and they said their goodbyes to all the staff. On their way through the city, they encountered a large rally in support of one of the presidential candidates. Ma Xiao decided it was a great opportunity to film a news report. Standing in the crowd, he recorded on his phone and camera as local residents clashed with police, a confrontation that escalated into a street brawl. Protesters threw stones, one of which accidentally struck him on the head. As he was fleeing, Xiao bumped into a man and knocked his phone out of his hand. He then returned to the car, while the man made his way through the crowd but was unable to call and trigger the bomb intended to assassinate the president. Half an hour later, they arrived at an event where locals were welcoming a Chinese engineer named Miao Feng. Unexpectedly, one of his colleagues told Miao there was a problem. He went to the office and discovered that a cell tower had gone down. He then set off toward the settlement of Vaxa, a 2-hour drive. Ma Xiao decided to ride along and film a good journalistic piece. He told his wife that they would be back before the plane departed, and that this story could change their lives forever. At the bridge leaving the city, a mass of cars and people had piled up, people abandoning their belongings and fleeing from something. Pan Wenjia got out of the vehicle to check on the injured and offer help. Boarding one of the buses, Ma Xiao began filming the wounded on his phone and asking what had happened. It turned out that Tarabya forces had attacked the suburbs. His wife told him she would go back to the hospital with the wounded to help, and that he should continue on with the engineer to get his story. They continued toward the broken cell tower. Upon arrival, it was clear the building had been deliberately blown up. Meanwhile, his wife was riding in a bus with the wounded, while on the roadside stood cars with dead bodies. They spotted a boy in one vehicle calling for help. The driver stopped the bus and said he would go check first. He approached the car, checked for signs of life, then called out that the people were still alive. At that very moment, the people in the vehicle pulled out a weapon and shot the driver dead. They then opened fire on the bus and everyone inside. Pan Wenjia ducked down and miraculously survived unharmed, while many others were wounded or killed. The attackers then pulled all foreigners out of the bus, forced them to their knees, and demanded to know where they were from and what their occupations were. Meanwhile, Ma Xiao and the engineer had returned to the suburbs, where they witnessed armed men force unarmed people onto the road and then run them over with a minibus. Suddenly, a bridge crossing the river was blown up, cutting off government troops from the terrorists. Toward evening, Ma Xiao and the engineer were driving along a detour away from the danger zones. The engineer explained that Tarabya and Banzamia had been at war for centuries, but the last 10 years had been calm, until the deputy mayor of the capital was shot at a stadium. Then they spotted a roadblock. The engineer got out to take a look, when suddenly armed men appeared from behind a hill. They ordered them out of the vehicle, forced them face down on the ground, tied their hands, and put black bags over their heads. An hour later, they were sitting in some kind of basement, tied to wooden tables. The captors took all their valuables and climbed back up the ladder. On the third day of captivity, a guard came down, brought them water, and left his rifle leaning against the wall. The engineer noted that over 3 days he had seen only 2 people, and no one was outside. They decided to make a move. Miao Feng grabbed the guard's arms and then threw him forcefully aside. Using a shard from a bowl, he cut through the ropes binding himself and Ma Xiao. Grabbing the rifle, they realized the guard was a woman, and when climbing out of the pit, they saw a girl in a wheelchair. Ma Xiao looked out the window and realized they were in an ordinary village filled with children and elderly people. One of the men removed his head covering and begged them to spare his family. Immediately after, the village elder came forward and apologized. The man who had taken them captive was named Latif, and the girl in the wheelchair was his daughter Nadia. They had kidnapped them because foreigners could bring a large ransom. enough to buy a modern prosthetic leg for his daughter. She had stepped on a landmine while herding sheep, and his hand had been cut off as punishment for voting for the wrong person in an election. Moreover, his son had gone missing 9 years ago. They got into a car and continued toward a safer area. The fuel was nearly gone, but nearby they spotted a minibus parked with a dead man lying beside it. The engineer, armed, went to investigate while Ma Xiao stayed to film. The engineer used a long wire to probe inside the tank and confirmed there was fuel, then headed back giving an interview. Suddenly, a powerful explosion occurred. There had been landmines hidden there, and the engineer lost his leg. Xiao rushed to him, fashioned a tourniquet from a belt, and with great effort carried him on his back to the car to return to the village for help. Just a few hundred meters short, they ran out of fuel. Xiao ran to the village and called for help. His friend was dying from blood loss. When they reached the car, it was clear the engineer had already died and nothing could be done. That evening, Latif explained to Ma Xiao that the bridge had been blown up and there was no way around because everything was mined. They had been navigating from memory. Latif also told him that his daughter currently had a metal shell casing from an artillery round serving as her prosthetic, and she needed a proper one. Then he showed him a bed of wilting tomato plants. Ma Xiao demonstrated a video showing how to properly grow tomatoes in their dry climate and poor soil. They gathered empty anti-tank mine casings and fashioned them into containers for germinating seeds. When the seeds sprouted, they transplanted them into the ground. 45 days passed as the plants grew and began bearing fruit. One day, Latif and Ma Xiao set off for town to stock up on things the village needed. They drove past people hanging from poles, government soldiers, but did not stop to help those still alive. In the city, they went to the local market, which sold everything from cow heads to various types of ammunition and weapons. Ma heard his native language and began to follow a Chinese man named Zhou Ji. Ma caught up with Zhou, who pinned him against a wall and demanded to know what he wanted. The stranger then explained that he was an immigrant from China with no family, that he had lived there for 5 years and traded gold and weapons with Tarabya. They went to a warehouse where mysterious men brought high-grade gold ingots for sale, while Ma hid nearby. Suddenly, gunfire erupted outside. Government troops had arrived and were engaged in a firefight with local bandits. Latif and Ma Xiao made their way through narrow alleyways, trying to stay out of sight of the armed men. They eventually burst into the town square, where they hid beneath a truck. They watched as terrorists forced soldiers, hands bound, to their knees, and then shot them dead on the spot. Toward evening, Latif and Ma safely made it back to their village. The next day, one of the boys climbed into Ma's car and pretended to drive. Ma Xiao asked the boy where he lived and whether they had fuel. The boy said yes. They then walked to the other village where the boy lived. Once there, Ma began stuffing bottles of fuel into his backpack, offering a bottle of whiskey in exchange. He then sat in the car and waited for the keys to be brought. The boy returned but immediately locked Ma inside the car, then began shouting, "Foreigner," loudly to attract as much attention from the villagers as possible. Ma smashed the window, climbed out, and started moving away from the crowd, in which the local elder was present, relaying news of the Chinese man over a radio. To avoid capture, Ma Xiao stole a motorcycle and rode it back to his car to fill up the tank. Suddenly shots rang out and he was forced to flee back to his village to hide from the pursuing. He and the children went down to the basement to wait it out. When the gang arrived in the village, their leader got out of the vehicle and asked the village elder about the foreigner, but the elder said nothing. He was shot in the head immediately. The leader then approached Latif and began beating him with the butt of a pistol. Suddenly he noticed tracks from army boots on the ground, leading to the basement. But Ma Xiao did not wait, he surrendered himself. The bandits then spotted a boy herding sheep. They put the boy in the car, and his mother managed to break free and ran toward him, but was shot dead on the spot. That evening, Ma Xiao and the boy were taken to a hidden cave in the mountains. Inside, other foreigners were already being held, pleading for clean water and fresh air. There he met the familiar immigrant Zhou Ji, who had been locked up because they suspected he had led an army into the city. It was the 55th day of the story. They were brought outside, where Ma saw his wife Pan, washing her bloodied hands. For safety, they pretended not to know each other. All the hostages were then made to kneel and asked to write their name, surname, citizenship, and occupation in a journal. The gang leader asked whose video camera it was. Ma said it was his. He was then ordered to film each hostage, recording messages to their loved ones and governments. He also filmed the elders of local settlements, and among them was Latif. That evening, Ma Xiao and his wife finally managed to speak quietly. They agreed not to reveal that they were husband and wife. Day 65 came to an end. During the night, 2 captured soldiers managed to pick the lock and escape from the cave while the young guard was asleep. In the morning, the guard was severely punished. On day 70, They were brought to an enormous gold mine where hundreds of workers and the leader of the iron gang were gathered. Some workers broke rocks while others panned the ore and water to extract pure gold ingots for sale. And there they saw the soldiers who had recently escaped from the cave. The gang leader's right-hand man grabbed a machete to show everyone what would happen if they tried to escape. He first severed the leg of one soldier, then the others. Ma Xiao's wife was sent to the local medical station to tend to the wounded. That evening, when food was brought to them, Ma noticed a scar on the young guard's arm, the same scar that Latif's missing son had. The next day, the guard began pretending to beat Ma in order to lead him away from the crowd. He then asked whether Ma knew where his village was and where his father was, and Ma said he would show him if he helped them escape. Later, when the gang leader's right-hand man was reviewing footage from the camera, he found private recordings that showed Ma Xiao together with his wife. Enraged, he immediately dragged Pan to the center of the camp and began whipping her with a belt, accusing her of being a liar. Xiao managed to run to her and shielded her with his body. The noise drew the attention of the terrorist leader, who ordered them to burn her alive and make her husband watch. She was tied to the fence and doused with fuel. Ma Xiao lay there, powerless. Suddenly, military drones appeared in the sky and began bombing the camp. Xiao and his wife managed to take shelter underground together with Latif's son. They grabbed bottles of water and put on their shoes. Climbing a ladder, they emerged on the other side of the camp, where Latif's son told them to head west. For several days they trekked through the desert and then across rocky terrain. One evening, as they rested briefly, motorcyclists suddenly appeared. Xiao and his wife hid inside hollow tree trunks. The strangers stopped and a boy with them began gathering branches for a fire. He spotted Ma Xiao hiding in the trunk but said nothing. Shortly after, one of the gang members noticed a water bottle nearby and realized it was not theirs. They immediately began searching for the fugitives. Ma Xiao decided to step out himself to avoid putting his wife in danger, but suddenly someone began firing at the gang from the darkness. A fight broke out in which Ma Xiao strangled the last bandit and then embraced the boy. In the morning, a helicopter came for them, but on the horizon, they saw motorcycles and vehicles rapidly approaching. The bandits fired an RPG and hit a nearby cell tower, which began to topple and caught the helicopter's tail. The helicopter crashed. Suddenly, the bandits began blowing up. They had driven into a minefield. Out of nowhere, Latif appeared in a vehicle and told them to get in quickly. They sped away while bandits on motorcycles pursued them. A military helicopter appeared in the sky and immediately began strafing the pursuers, eventually taking all of them out. That evening, in Latif's village, they heard shouts. Government soldiers then descended into the basement, not bandits. At last, they were safe.